Hare Krishna. Glad to be back with you all again. We'll continue with our theme, coping with bhava and aspiring for bhava. Those of you who were with us the last time I spoke, Wednesday night for me, may recall we discussed the notion that by experiencing Maya, you somehow or other become immunized in the sense that, oh, I've had enough. This is too much. I'm burned out. Now I can fully embrace bhakti. Perhaps again, like I didn't do before, or I did for a short period of time. But I've got to go through it in order to get over it. So we spoke last week, a few days ago, about the concept regarding the COVID-19 coronavirus, the concept of herd immunity, that if you just let the virus rip through the human population, enough people will get the experience. In other words, enough people will develop immunity by their experience of the virus, and that will give the virus much less of a host population because everyone's experienced. And we discussed how sometimes even materialistic philosophers, materialists in the guise of yogis, spout this kind of attractive rhetoric. Attractive only in Kali Yuga, the age of darkness. That first you get into it, and then you can get over it. Without getting into it, how can you truly get over it? We're going to discuss tonight a section from the 6th canto where Dakṣa actually makes these points to Nārada Muni before cursing him. And he calls Nārada Muni, of all persons, such names of condemnation. He's going to stress that how can my sons, whom Nārada Muni made into full bhakti yogi renunciates, how can my sons actually stick to that path without having first enjoyed material life? And when Dakṣa talks about enjoying material life, he doesn't mean in the Kali Yuga wild zoo-like sense of totally no regulation, no commitment, no concept of what are pious activities. No, he was raising his sons to be pious enjoyers so that in the next life they could go to a higher planet and continue their first-class material enjoyment. Dakṣa was angry at Nārada Muni. You've given my boys premature absorption in bhakti. In other words, this absorption should be at the tail end of life, after they've done it all. Done it all again doesn't mean in the current Kali Yuga sense. But still, Dakṣa was a first-class materialist in that he understood all about good karma. And he wanted his boys to accumulate good karma. And after having enjoyed in a good karma way, then they might consider detachment. Have you ever thought about this? That maybe, just maybe, I didn't enjoy enough materially, and that's why I'm weak in bhakti. Or maybe, although I'm practicing bhakti for 10, 20, 30 years, maybe I still didn't get my full taste beforehand, before my devotee years. I didn't get my full taste of material indulgence. And that could come back to haunt me when I'm 50, when I'm 60. I didn't get enough. And now, at the age of 50, 60, old age is upon me, and oh no, I can't enjoy effectively with the body, but my mind is so haunted by the ghosts of material indulgence. I don't want that to happen. Better to dive into the pool now, swim through it, and then climb out of that pool ready to serve Krishna. Could sound attractive, yes? I'll give you a contemporary example that is very relevant for this present moment in world history. You might have heard of Corona parties. There are two types. One, the first type, happened for sure. In some countries, in parts of Germany, for example, young people were having Corona parties fueled by techno music and alcohol, and you couldn't get them to chant Hare Krishna, but they were chanting Corona, Corona, Corona. They were saying, in other words, just let the good times roll. We don't care that we have to take so many precautions. Right now is now, and our senses are pushing us. We have to enjoy now. Stop burdening us with all these anxieties. We've been waiting for good times, and now is the time. But that's only one type of Corona party. There's another type that information about it is starting to buzz. Have a Corona party because if you're young and you get infected, you'll most likely go through it with no symptoms or very mild symptoms. So might as well get it over. Go through it and get over it. So have a Corona party in the sense that just freely associate. And then there'll be a sufficient number of persons who are immunized because they've already had it, and they can help others at medical establishments, hospitals, clinics. They can be the front lines persons. Indeed, one prominent publication, Wired, was calling for a Corona Corps. Form an infantry of persons who've already had the virus and gotten over it. And because the speculation is they won't get it again, these persons can be like an army of social do-gooders because they have nothing to worry about in terms of contamination. Now, we did point out that medical scientists aren't sure whether you can actually get immunity by having the virus. And they're not sure that if you do, they don't know how long it could last. What about the virus of material existence? How do we get immunity to that, and how long will it last? This is a major theme amongst our devotees. Will it last? Can I go the distance? In other words, we can't proceed for a long time in bhakti just based on memories of how burned out we may have been before taking shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those memories fade. And if we simply rely on those memories, our bhakti progress can be easily disrupted. Beyond the preliminary years in bhakti, when we have fresh in our mind the catastrophe of material existence as we experienced it, beyond that, we need to develop attraction for Krishna, attraction for Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes, attraction for selfless devotional service. Bhava is a problem. Material existence is a problem. Because human beings are acting like they have no intelligence. And it's no wonder that they're acting like that, because when you contact the illusory energy, Maya steals your intelligence or covers it. So you pay that price. When we think of the current pandemic situation, the first thing that it tells us is that human beings have a problematic relation with nature. As we've been speaking about from time to time, human beings have an inner crisis in terms of how human beings relate to other living entities and how human beings relate to nature, the ecosphere as a whole. Just consider the current pandemic. It's showing you that the animals are taking revenge on us because our relationship with them has been consumptive, intrusive, and disruptive. We've marched deep into animal habitat to accomplish human purposes. By doing that, we've given the viruses present in the animals a chance to jump to the human species. Killing animals, capturing animals, live animal markets where animals are slaughtered before your eyes, factory farms. All these things shake loose from their natural animal hosts the viruses that are plaguing the world. So remember the point we made the other day. 75% of the emerging zoonotic pathogens, pathogens that are jumping from animals to human beings, 75%, 3 out of 4. I'll say that right. 3 out of 4 emerging infectious diseases come from zoonotic pathogens, pathogens that are jumping, have jumped from animals to human beings. 3 out of 4 infectious diseases that are emerging. So nature is telling us something. The animals are telling us something. Now, once a virus moves from an infected animal into a human being, it's hit the jackpot. It's hit virgin territory. Because human beings don't restrict themselves to one neck of the woods. They go all over the world. And so their friends, the viruses, travel with them. And that's what's going on now. How do we reduce opportunities for viruses to spill over into... It just takes one human being. How do we reduce those opportunities? We have to cut down on our disruption of the ecosystem. Otherwise, the animals will continue to take their revenge upon us because of our unnatural diets, our unnatural treatment of them, our exploitation of them, our exploitation of their habitat. What can we do? Just learn by experience? You stop one virus in this category, another one comes. How to get to the root of the problem is a question a bhakti yogi always wants to consider. The seed of material enjoyment produces strange and distorted behavior. There's no such thing as an innocent material enjoyer. Karma is always involved. Now we'll go to the 6th canto and hear about Dakṣa. He is on a level of materialism far beyond what goes on today. He's a Vedic enjoyer. He knows about good karma. He knows about the demigods. He knows about having a more comfortable next life. He knows all those things, performing yajna, Vedic rituals for ridding a person of any bad karma. He knows all those things. And that's what he wants for his sons. But what's happened? Nārada Muni has convinced 2 huge batches of Dakṣa's sons to become fully immersed bhakti yogis. Now, let's give some credit to Dakṣa. He sent his sons off to perform austerities, knowing that first austerity, then enjoyment. So he's nothing like what goes on today. Let them practice austerities and then come back and have royal opulence, wonderful material happiness. But Nārada Muni, as you know, ruined all that by his outreach efforts. He basically told Dakṣa's sons, what are you going through all this austerity just to get material enjoyment? Wake up! There are much higher things to be attained. Use your human form of life for what it's meant for. The first batch of sons, they did exactly what Nārada Muni said. They didn't go back home to their father and his plans. Dakṣa, all right, I'll send another batch of sons. They were easy recipients of Nārada Muni's mercy, because to the second batch, Nārada Muni said, wait a minute, you know Vedic culture, the Vedic tradition, the younger brothers should follow in the footsteps of the older brothers. The older brothers have become fully immersed in bhakti, so certainly you should also. And they did. So now let's go to Dakṣa's reaction as he presents that prominent principle. First, enjoy sufficiently, and only then retire from material activities. He was so angry. Angry at whom? At Nārada Muni. I don't know if you've ever been this angry. Shukadeva Goswami describes that Dakṣa was so upset that he almost fainted from lamentation. Can you picture that? Fainting from lamentation. Have you ever been so angry that your lips start trembling? I'm trying to imitate. How can you be so angry that your lips tremble while you're almost fainting from lamentation? But you see, Nārada Muni is very determined. He has delivered, by his outreach campaigns, so many members of the family line that Dakṣa's in. That family line is coming from Swayambhuva Manu. So he's coming. Nārada Muni is coming now, after delivering Dakṣa's sons with his outreach. He's coming now to Dakṣa himself. He's being strategic. Dakṣa right now is bereaved. He's feeling great material loss. This is a suitable time for Dakṣa's appreciating Bhakti Yoga. Let me go there now. You immediately would think, this is risky. Does Nārada Muni really know what he's getting into? Reminds me of my little self, maybe 48 years ago, when I began my devotional service to Krishna. I entered the ashram in New York. I didn't know until my mother told me years later that my father was so upset, so devastated, that he wanted to have me committed to a mental institution. The problem was, though, it took both parents to sign. And my mother, although she didn't understand what I was doing, she wouldn't sign. So that was that. Looking back to that time 48 years ago, I can understand more than I did when I was 22. I can understand more how my father was reacting in such a way. Looking at it from a material point of view. I'm the oldest son. I had just graduated from Yale University. Oh, he was so proud of that. He would always ask me, bring me a decal, one of those stickers, a Yale University sticker I can put on the back of my Mercedes. So all my friends will ask, oh, you know someone who goes there? Yes, my son. So, looking back, I understand. Hindsight's 20/20. So I didn't know about what he had in mind, his plan, until my mother told me some years later. My father never told me that. He's passed on, but he never told me this. So here we have Dakṣa, fainting from lamentation, so angry his lips are trembling, and Nārada Muni is going to try and rescue him. Nārada Muni is thinking, this is a suitable time to give Dakṣa mercy. He's not going to come to me, so I will go to his house. And what did he hear from Dakṣa? First of all, Aho asadu. Oh, greatly dishonest non-devotee. You're not a sadhu. You're a sadhu. You're the opposite of a sadhu. You're wearing the dress of a saintly person, but you're actually not a saint. I, who am performing grihastha life according to all the protocols and karmas, I am a saintly person. But you have shown my sons the path of renunciation, and in this way you've done me an abominable injustice. You see, Dakṣa regarded his sons as innocent boys who'd been misled. They've been overpowered by Nārada Muni. They've been bewildered. Dakṣa thought that Nārada Muni was envious. You just couldn't tolerate the fact that in our good karma household life we're happy. You couldn't tolerate that. And you've shown to my small children the path of beggars. This reminds me of one of my greatest fears during my first 2 months as a brahmachari living in the ashram. My first 2 months. My greatest fear was to meet on the streets of New York while we're doing Harinam Sankirtan, chanting parties, to encounter some of my friends from university. I thought, oh, I'll never be able to explain. Here I am with my shaved head and my orangish pink clothes, which looked to them like a bedsheet. And here I am in Times Square in New York City, most famous place in Manhattan. And there I am in a line with other devotees, cartels, mridungas, and we're chanting Hare Krishna. I'd always pray, oh Krishna, don't let me meet anyone of my former university associates. Sure enough, it happened. There I was, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh, no. There was a bunch of them, all from these posh universities, elitist universities in the USA. Dressed, with the latest fashions and just looking elitist. And all of a sudden they said, there he is! Because they had heard, the news had spread. He went off the deep end. He joined the Hare Krishnas? Are you kidding me? Him? We know him. So they just stood in front of me, a group of 5 of them, and just, I felt like wanting to disappear in the cracks of the pavement. Oh, somehow or other I hung in there. I just kept chanting, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It shook me to my bones, shook me to my soul, but some other Krishna brought me through it. So, Dakṣa has this notion that, Nārada Muni, you're envious. Here we are, having happy, good karma family life, doing the yagyas, doing the rituals that guarantee a comfortable birth in the next life. And you've come along and shown the path of beggars to my small children. They're like children. They're innocent. And you cheated them with your teachings. He gets worse. He calls Nārada Papa, oh most sinful. Don't you know my sons haven't been freed from all their debts? They're still indebted. How can they take to the path of liberation when they have all these debts to pay? Many of you know the famous verse from Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Devarshi bhutapta ninam patrinam. Anyone who takes birth in this world has a whole list of debts. Number 1, to the devas, the demigods. Number 2, to the rishis, the sages who fill this world with genuine wisdom, which is mostly ignored these days. And then, living beings in general. Unfortunately, we are exploiting living beings in general, but we're supposed to treat them properly, and we have a debt to them, which doesn't mean that because we kill them and eat them, we have a debt. No, because we take service from them in so many ways, especially from cows and bullocks for plowing. This is traditional Vedic usage of animals. And as you know, the animals are considered citizens of the state. So Devarshi Bhutapta Ninam, not simply living beings in general, but human society, particularly all of human society. It's providing some kind of political or economic system. Of course, these days, it's mayhem, as the coronavirus is revealing in many parts of the world. The political economic systems haven't designated the resources for protecting human beings. Totally inadequate public health systems. Yet, ferocious nuclear arsenals. As I pointed out a few days ago, a huge military buildup. Indeed, in the land of my birth, it outspends the next 7 nations combined, which include China and Russia, in terms of military spending. Where's the adequate public health system? So you may think you're protecting your nation against other nations trying to take over, but the virus pathogens don't care about that. They're producing mass mayhem through pandemic, regardless of your military. They're also attacking the military members. In a sane human society, their debts just by being a member of a sane and civilized human society. And then Patrinam, ancestors, our predecessors. Just like Dakṣa had predecessors, and Nārada Muni had successfully outreached to so many of Dakṣa's predecessors. But Dakṣa is arguing, look, my sons haven't paid their debts to all these factors, the demigods, the rishis, living entities in general, their relatives, human society, and their ancestors. They haven't done it. How can you set them on the path of renunciation now? Dakṣa didn't know that one who takes to bhakti has no debts to pay. He didn't understand that. That's why Krishna makes his generous offer at the end of Bhagavad Gita. Just surrender to me. I take care of the rest. Nārada Muni tolerated all these insults and accusations from Prajapati Dakṣa. Nārada Muni's just doing his duty as a Vaishnava. Let me turn these boys onto the path for going back to Krishna, back to Godhead, and let me try to inspire Dakṣa to do the same. He's showing how even for Nārada Muni, outreach can be very demanding, and one has to be very tolerant and perseverant. So Dakṣa is enraged. My sons did not repay their debts. They didn't consider their karmas. All these things they haven't done. You, Nārada, Papa, sinful, killer of trust. My boy's future is ruined. They've taken to renunciation without being qualified. You claim, he told Nārada Muni, you claim to be an associate of Lord Vishnu, but your very presence is defaming Lord Vishnu. You've committed violence against living entities while masquerading as an associate of the Lord. You are shameless. You have no compassion. How dare you even think of traveling with the personality of Godhead? In other words, Dakṣa is saying to Nārada Muni, you're atrocious, and if you associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord will also be defamed. The Lord becomes defamed by evil servants like you. What more can I say? You've destroyed the fame of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You've offended the Supreme Lord. You've offended me. You wear the dress of a devotee, but you're creating enmity amongst persons who are not your enemies. You've broken friendship. Aren't you ashamed of posing as a devotee while performing these abominable actions? Dakṣa is really showing us what it takes to do outreach. You have to bear these criticisms. It takes hundreds of liters, gallons of blood, sweat, and tears to help someone come back to Krishna. And then when they lose their mind and accuse you, it requires great tolerance, great patience. This is why Krishna says no one's more dear, nor will there ever be one more dear than the one who tries to distribute this most precious science of bhakti. I like this point that Srila Prabhupada raises. He says, here we are in the Krishna consciousness movement, trying to train young people to become devotees and return home back to Godhead by following the principles of bhakti. He said, but our service that we're doing, this service that we're doing is not appreciated in India at that time or in the West. In India, the caste brahmanas are saying, oh, how can you make these Western persons born in degraded families, how can you make them into brahmanas? So they criticize Prabhupada for that. And then in the West, the parents of his devotees would criticize. You've taken our children, you've brainwashed them, you've disrupted their careers. They're living such an abnormal life. Remember, 40, 50 years ago, vegetarianism was not very common. Talks about karma, talks about yoga, so common today, were exotic back then. So the parents of those who fortunately took shelter of Prabhupada, they were so enraged many times. Some were appreciative. What a transformation this Swami Prabhupada has done for our children. But many just couldn't understand. So here Prabhupada is expressing his heart that the service I'm rendering, the most precious service I'm rendering to the whole world, is appreciated neither in India or in the West. Of course, now we see so many devotees in India. And throughout the world, there are so many devotees. But that's the product of Srila Prabhupada's selfless sacrifice. And he wants us to play our role in that. To be accused by ignorant persons, it's difficult to bear. But this is the way for our service to be recognized by Krishna, who says no one is more dear and no one will ever be one. No one will ever be more dear. It's hard doing a thankless task, and outreach sometimes is thankless. Sometimes some persons appreciate, sometimes some don't. Or they flip. Persons who appreciated, then suddenly their consciousness flips. They get a spiritual virus, so to speak, a virus that attacks their spiritual life. So, someone who is trying to serve Lord Chaitanya has to tolerate that. It's humbling, it's humiliating. So Dakṣa is accusing Nārada Muni that I've shown friendship to you, but here you are treating me like this, breaking friendship with me. He does say some things that have value. As I said, he's in a completely different category than a materialistic sense enjoyer today. He's a Vedic enjoyer. Pravritti marg, the path of material enjoyment, and on that path are rules and regulations. Yagyas, sacrifices, good karma to be achieved. But he says, Nārada Muni, if you think that simply by your awakening the sense of renunciation, these boys will be detached, I must tell you, simply by changing their attire into renunciates, that's not going to work. And he's right about that. There must be knowledge first. And this is why we always stress to any devotees who will listen. You've got to know Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and then there's the postgraduate study, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Unless we understand the science of Krishna, how can we stay away from the illusory energy? It's not possible. That energy is too strong. Now here's the statement by Dakṣa that will be our focus. It's been the theme underneath everything. Nanu bhuya najanati puman vishaya tikshnatam nividyate swayam tasman nattata binadi parai. Material enjoyment is indeed the cause of all unhappiness. Dakṣa knows that. But one cannot give it up unless one has personally experienced how much suffering it is. Therefore, one should be allowed to remain in so-called material enjoyment while simultaneously advancing in knowledge to experience the misery of this false material happiness. Then, without help from others, one will naturally find material enjoyment detestable without others prematurely instilling that in you. He goes on to say, those whose minds are changed by others do not become as renounced as those who have personal experience. Very eloquent. But basically he's saying the same old mantra. Experience is the best teacher. My boys need to experience the illusory material happiness. And then they'll be ready to hear that it's not what we should be striving for. And as you heard, Dakṣa, he's nothing like a materialist today. He does grant that material enjoyment is indeed the cause of all unhappiness. Okay, but you can't give it up without experiencing it first. Therefore, the process is to stay in material enjoyment and gradually learn by experience. And that experience will give you wisdom. You may find this appealing. It might sound like it makes sense. Become implicated in material existence. You get the virus of material enjoyment. And then you'll naturally be distressed, of course. And after experiencing sufficient distress, you drop it. You drop material existence. Sounds good, doesn't it? But something else will happen. You have to have a realistic appraisal of the grip that the illusory energy can have. And remember, as we pointed out a few days ago, there's no educational department in the illusory energy. It's all about bewilderment. You think you've learned your lesson. Never again, never again. But it happens again and again. So in the purport of this verse, which is our theme, Prabhupada writes, material nature, however, is so strong that although a man suffers at every step, he will not cease his attempts to enjoy. Suffers at every step, but try harder. One more time. We just need to make some adjustments here. More technology, more scientific knowledge. Prabhupada continues, it is not a fact that because material enjoyment involves so many painful conditions, one will automatically become detached. What's needed then? Devotee Sangha, association with devotees. Get the blessings of devotees. If you can get the blessings of Nārada Muni, great. At least get the blessings of those who are trying to serve Nārada Muni's mission. And that way, your eyes open and you see material existence for what it is. So Prabhupada explains at the end of his purport that the members of his bhakti movement have given up the spirit of material enjoyment not because of practice, in other words, not because they've experienced so much, but by the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his servants. So Dakṣa is worried about the natural detachment of his sons from the material energy. But that natural detachment doesn't come by experience. It comes by the blessings of the Lord's devotees. Bhakti is mystical in that way. Sometimes we've heard the preliminary stages of bhakti. Ado Shraddha Tatat Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya. Rupa Goswami gives that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Devotion. Shraddha, that conviction to push ahead in bhakti, develops through sadhu sangha, association with devotees. And the acharyas explain that the nature of that shraddha, that conviction, is not simply that, oh, bhakti is great. Yes, that's there, but that shraddha is more substantial. It is conviction in the Shastra. In the association, the Sangha of devotees, you see through the Shastra. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam become your eyes. Because bhakti is Shastra based. It's not someone's concoction or wonderful imagination. So in the association of the sadhus, the shraddha, the conviction that develops, is centered upon the Bhakti Yoga texts, the Shastra. Please remember that. Dakṣa, what's he thinking about himself? He's thinking, I've been kind, I've been tolerant. I didn't say anything when Nārada Muni spirited away my first batch of sons. But 2 times he's done the second batch too? I have proved that he is not a sadhu. He even calls Nārada Muni Mudha. Oh, rascal fool! You don't know how to act. Such a strong word. What Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Mudha janmani janmani. Birth after birth you'll be a foolish rascal. Dakṣa says that to Nārada Muni? You are a rascal who does not know how to behave to others. Now I'm going to curse you. I'm going to curse you that you can travel all over the universe, but you have no residence anywhere. You can't stay anywhere. Now Dakṣa thought, this is great punishment. I know, being an opulent living householder, that, yeah, everyone wants to stay in one place in opulence and enjoy their senses. And so I'm going to curse him. He can't stay in one place. Hellish, isn't it? That's what he thought. Nārada Muni thought, this is the greatest. These are blessings for me to continue my traveling all over the universe. Playing my veena, chanting Radhika Ramana. So everyone knows the rest. How Prabhupada said, I've been cursed in the same way, and I'm passing on that curse to my followers. They can't stay anywhere. They may have nice places to stay everywhere, but they can't stay there for long. But then he says, I would like it if my young disciples would take charge of traveling all over the world so I can stay in one place and finish Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are the impediments that we face in outreach. Insult, criticism, sometimes even personal injury. The question could be raised, why didn't Nārada Muni leave immediately as soon as he heard the first insult? A sadhu. Oh, a sadhu. Oh, opposite of a sadhu. Unsaintly person. Why didn't he go? Nārada Muni thought that if I stay during the diatribe, all these fiercely hot words from Dakṣa, if I stay, he'll exhaust himself. He'll get it all out. And then I'll be able to make my outreach presentation. After all, Dakṣa is not an ordinary person. He's accumulated many pious activities. He's nothing like a human being on earth today. So Nārada Muni was expecting that Dakṣa would vent his wrath and then calm down and get a chance to listen, and a chance for himself to become a bhakti yogi. So just like Lord Nityananda stood tolerantly while Jagai and Madhai offended him, wanting their deliverance. So Nārada Muni endured that stream of foul accusations. Nārada Muni thought that Dakṣa would think that Dakṣa had said so many extremely harsh words. But when he vents his anger, when he gets it all out, he'll start thinking, well, Nārada Muni never said anything back to me. He never criticized me. He didn't curse me. He tolerated everything. So Nārada Muni is thinking, so then Dakṣa may repent, have a change of heart, and he'll be a suitable field for planting the seed of bhakti. So that's why Nārada remained. But he saw finally that Dakṣa was not repentant. So then Nārada Muni did leave. And what was he thinking as he departed? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says Nārada Muni was thinking, I have seen the power of remnants of offenses to Lord Shiva. Remember from the 4th canto how Dakṣa had offended Lord Shiva? So Nārada Muni says, the remnants, the shadow of that is still there. I'm seeing that now. When we go to the world of Bhava, Chaitanya Lila, we find a possible offense. Mahaprabhu is in the temple at Jagannath Puri, and in his ecstatic vision, he doesn't see Lord Jagannath. He sees Brajendanandana, Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He sees him directly. Before we discuss the possible offense, or you would take it to be indeed the greatest offense that happened, let's hear from Kaviraj Goswami about Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy in taking the position of Srimati Radharani, taking her emotions. It's very difficult to understand. A point that Kaviraj Goswami wants you to firmly grasp is that we should hear these discussions with faith and patience, and in that way, gradually, the subject matter becomes revealed to us. Otherwise, it's inconceivable, the ecstatic love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I've read history books by British historians who are writing about Jagannath Puri during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And these mundane history books do mention Mahaprabhu. How? They say he was a great social reformer. He broke down the caste system. But then, somewhere or other in the last part of his life, he lost the plot completely and became mad. Obviously, these British historians didn't understand ecstatic love of Krishna. So Kaviraj Goswami says, I shall now describe a very small portion of the activities performed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mind, intelligence, and body when he was bewildered by strong feelings of separation from Krishna. He appeals to the associates of Mahaprabhu, headed by Srivas Thakur, Sup Damodar, etc. Please give me the strength to describe the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's nothing that can be done by the abilities of a mundane historian. Even for a devotee, this reality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his ecstatic feelings and demonstrating what pure love of Krishna is all about, it's difficult to understand without blessings coming through parampara. Kaviraj Goswami says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotion of transcendental madness in separation from Krishna is very deep and mysterious. Even though one is very advanced and learned, he cannot understand it. So then the question, how can one describe unfathomable subject matters? The answer? It is possible only if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him the capability. The more we read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the more these verses enter into our consciousness. By serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his mercy enters our heart. Younger devotees obviously won't, generally speaking, fully appreciate. But as your bhakti matures, these descriptions become your life and soul. Here's a key verse, a theme. Tate Vishvas Kore Shuna bhaver varnan. Haive bhaver gan paiba prema dan. Please hear faithfully this description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic emotions. Thus you will come to know of his ecstatic love, and ultimately you will achieve love of Godhead. Kaviraj Goswami goes on to describe how when Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna, his situation, his condition, was just like that of the gopis in Vrindavan after Krishna left for Mathura. Especially the lamentation of Krishna's dearmost devotee, Srimati Radharani. Those feelings of separation became the prominent feature of Mahaprabhu's transcendental madness. He saw himself, thought of himself as being in the position of Srimati Radharani. Kaviraj Goswami points out that sometimes Lord Chaitanya thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. We'll hear some explanation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Obviously, we're in the Bhava section of our presentation tonight. We're deep into the Bhava presentation, but we need to hear about this. If we have no understanding and attraction for the ultimate goal of life, what will inspire us to push on in our bhakti? We should know the treasure house that is there. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the purport of the word abhimana or self-conception is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought himself to be in the position of Srimati Radharani and was always ready to render Krishna service in that way from the position of Srimati Radharani. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, he assumed the complexion and emotions of Srimati Radharani and remained in that status. He never assumed the complexion or status of Lord Krishna. Of course, Krishna wanted to experience the role of Srimati Radharani. That is the original cause of his assuming the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, pure Vaishnavas never disturb Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conception of being Srimati Radharani. You may recall the short verse. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined. The transcendental madness, as demonstrated by Lord Chaitanya in ecstatic love of Krishna, is difficult to understand. One night, Lord Chaitanya dreamed that he saw Krishna performing Rasa Leela. What did he see in that dream? Tribhanga Sundar, the beautiful threefold bending form of Krishna. Murali Badan, holding the flute to his face. Pitambara, dressed in yellow garments, with the Vanamala, the garland of forest flowers. He's Madan Mohan, the enchanter of Cupid. In that dream, Mahaprabhu saw the gopis making a circle, and in the middle were Krishna and his most beloved consort, Srimati Radharani. Everyone is dancing. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes how Lord Chaitanya is, in his dream, is thinking, oh, now I'm with Krishna in Vrindavan. He was tasting the rasa of the Rasa Leela, tasting the flavor. Meanwhile, his servant, Govinda, was thinking, Mahaprabhu is not waking up. I have to go wake him up. He did that, and Mahaprabhu was somewhat unhappy. You'll hear more about that later. So he then made his daily trip to Jagannath Temple, and he's staring at Lord Jagannath and seeing Brajendra Nandana, the son of Maharaj Nanda. While he's absorbed in that way, a woman who was so eager to see Lord Jagannath made what anyone would say is not one grievous offense, but two. The scene is that Mahaprabhu is at his usual vantage point, behind the Garuda Stamba, the column upon which the Murti of Garuda is situated. In front of him are hundreds and thousands of persons taking darshan of Lord Jagannath. Lord Chaitanya chose that position further in the back. Sometimes he would be crying so much in ecstasy that there'd be a river of tears at his feet. So this lady wanted a clear view. And what did she do? She decided to climb the column of Garuda. Not only did she climb the column, but as she got higher on the column, she put her foot on the shoulder of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu's servant quickly got her down. But Mahaprabhu chastised the servant, not the woman. You uncivilized man, why are you forbidding this woman to climb the Garuda Stamba, the column of Garuda? Let her see Lord Jagannath to her full satisfaction. What was the woman thinking? When she came to full consciousness of what was going on, besides her eagerness to see Lord Jagannath, she was horrified. She quickly climbed back down to the ground and begged at Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. We heard about Dakṣa still experiencing the remnants of offenses he made to Lord Shiva. Here this lady thinks, I've done two atrocities. I've offended Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, and I've offended Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What was Mahaprabhu's response? I've never had this amount of eagerness as shown by this woman? Lord Jagannath has not granted me such eagerness. This lady has fully absorbed her body, her mind, her whole life in Lord Jagannath. She was totally unaware what she was doing with her feet. How fortunate she is. I pray that one day she'll grant me the great eagerness she has, the great eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. Before this incident broke Mahaprabhu's meditation, what was he seeing? Yes, we heard about how he saw Lord Jagannath as the son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna. The vision was even more intense than that. Everywhere he looked, he would see Krishna holding the flute to his lips. Because Mahaprabhu is seeing in Gopi Bhava, in the Bhava of Krishna's young cowherd girls. He's seeing just like that. And everywhere he looked, he saw Krishna. Braj Krishna. But when that incident with the woman happened, Mahaprabhu's ecstatic trance broke. He returned to external consciousness. And he saw once again Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. And then he laments, "What's happened? Am I in Kurukshetra now? The place of opulence? Where's Vrindavan?" His agitation about that increased. He became morose and returned to his quarters. Who can understand this with material consciousness? We discussed some days ago about how in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu the Acharyas point out that Krishna hides the experience of pure love of God because persons who are not in proper advanced consciousness will think this is torture, this is suffering. Persons who think that the goal of life is to get happiness and stay away from distress, they look at these topmost ecstatic experiences in bhakti and think, oh, that's just suffering. Where is the happiness? So therefore Krishna keeps these experiences confidential. But remember, Mahaprabhu comes with the Panchatattva and they break open the storehouse of ecstatic love for Krishna and distribute the contents. So we'll end with some information from Srila Prabhupada. Far beyond the world of bhava and deep into bhava as prema. In the translation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I found Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, but I have lost him again. Who has taken my Krishna? Where have I come? Purport gets very ecstatic in its confidential revelations. It says, these are the feelings of Srimati Radharani. First, Lord Chaitanya felt that he had been taken to Vrindavan, where he saw Krishna's rasa dance with the gopis. Then he was brought to Kurukshetra to see Lord Jagannath, his sister Subhadra, and Lord Balaram. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lost Vrindavan and Krishna, the master of Vrindavan. At this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced Divyonmada, transcendental madness and separation from Krishna. At Kurukshetra, Krishna displays his opulence, whereas in Vrindavan, he is in his original position. Krishna never goes even a step away from Vrindavan. Therefore, Kurukshetra is less important for the gopis than Vrindavan. Although devotees who worship Krishna in opulence, his Vaikuntha aspect, may prefer to see Lord Krishna at Kurukshetra along with Subhadra and Balarama, the gopis want to see Krishna in Vrindavan, performing the rasa dance with Srimati Radharani. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed by practical example how one can cultivate the mood of Radharani and the other gopis in separation from Krishna. Devotees absorbed in this mood do not like to see Krishna anywhere else but Vrindavan. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lamented, "I found Krishna in Vrindavan, and now I have again lost him and come to Kurukshetra." Unless one is a very highly advanced devotee, he cannot understand these intricate feelings. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, however, has tried to explain this Divyonmada as far as possible, and it is our duty simply to appreciate it as far as possible. Therefore, the author has made the following request in verse 11, that verse we read earlier. Tate Vishwas Kori Shuna Bhaver Varnan Haibe Bhaver Gyan Paiba Premadan. My dear readers, simply try to hear this description with faith and love. That will help you understand transcendental ecstasy, and at last you will achieve love of Godhead very easily. Thank you very much for your association. Again, we've talked about the depths of bhava, material existence, the virus of material contamination, how to get genuine immunity, which comes not by experience. And we've talked about the inconceivable Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrating pure love of Krishna in separation. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.